Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Radio Europa episode 24. We're joined tonight by Laura.
Hey guys.
And somebody you'll know from our previous podcast, Alex from Italy.
Hello.
Right, guys. So tonight we're going to pack a few big issues into this week's episode. A few big issues that have been in the news a lot over the last few weeks. First of all, Brexit, the mess that Theresa May is making of Brexit. We're going to look at that. A recent referendum in Switzerland that a lot of you won't have heard about, but there's a theoretical point that we can get a bit autistic about. And the Yellow Gilet protests in France, which obviously are massive news, and we're going to look at what's behind those and get a bit deeper into that issue. So first of all, let's get straight into it. Brexit. Laura, obviously you'll know a bit about this, being British like myself. Just give everybody a bit of a background. What's going on and where we're at now?
Yeah, okay. I'm not 100% sure where to start because it feels like it's been going on for years now. But obviously we triggered Article 50 on the 29th of March 2017, and it's supposed to be a 2-year process to leave the European Union. So we're supposed to be leaving on the 29th of March 2019. But then there's a potential transition period of that. After that, which could potentially take, it's just less than 2 years, I think, for the transition period. So where we are today is that the European Union and Britain have been negotiating with each other and trying to come up with a deal. And Theresa May has finally come up with a 585-page withdrawal agreement. The European Union accepted it. Was it something like 36 minutes? They accepted it. So it's a pretty good deal for them. And it basically just... It's a text that sets out the terms of the UK's divorce from the European Union. So it covers how much money we owe them and things like, trade opportunities and citizens that are living in the EU or European citizens that are living in Britain. And that's kind of it, really. But it's upset a lot of people. There's been 2 resignations, including Brexit Secretary Dominic Raab. The next step is for the MPs to vote on it, and I think that is on is it the 12th? Or
yeah, 12th of December, yeah.
Yeah, it's in a few weeks, so they're going to vote on it, and then it goes up to the House of Lords as well, and they vote on it. And that's kind of where we are at the moment, so it's an awful deal. So, like, Brexiteers don't like it, Remainers don't like it either. There's about 80 Tory rebels who are saying that they don't like it, and they want to kind of oust Theresa May and make her step down. But I don't think they've got enough people for her to do that at the moment. But Remainers, one thing that they're saying that's really annoying me on social media is they're saying, well, I bet you wish you voted Remain now. And it's like, no, we just wish that we had a good deal. So just to go over a few bad points from it, the one problem is the transition period, because it's 21 months and basically there's no UK presence in the European Parliament, but we still have to follow all of their rules to the letter. So we don't get a say in anything, but we're still kind of stuck in it for quite a while now. The divorce bill is set to be around 39 billion, which Brexiteers are very upset about because there's no guarantee that there's going to be a trade agreement at the end of it, but we're still paying that huge amount. So that's a problem. Also, the Northern Ireland border issue is a huge thing. I kind of feel like they're just using that as a bit of a excuse to try and trap us into the customs union, because what's happening there is if there isn't a deal agreed between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland by the end of the transition period, so 2020, that avoids a hard border between the two countries, then a backstop will kick in, which is a single customs territory between the European Union and the United Kingdom. So really we're kind of we're trapped into a customs union still. So that's a problem. No one really knows what's going to happen there. And what else is there? So there's the European Court as well, which continues to have indirect influence of the United Kingdom. So it's just kind of a dreadful deal. I've been looking at a lot of polls, and there's only kind of like 10% of the population that are saying, yeah, this is a good deal. Not really sure what else to add, but it just seems to be a bit of a nightmare at the minute. I think the fact that the European Union accepted it so readily, it tells you everything that you need to know, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you've covered a lot of the points there pretty well. And obviously, when the other side is biting your hand off to accept it, I think it's pretty obvious you've got a shitty deal there. But there's a couple of things that people don't really know about as well that make this just a shocking deal. So, for instance, number one, the only people that can actually agree to let us out of this deal, out of this arrangement, the transition arrangement, is the European Union. So there's no independent arbitration body who can deal with disputes between the two. If we want to leave, we have to ask their permission. If we want to change something, we have to ask their permission. Another one, which is being called the Mandelson clause. So basically, anybody who's worked for the European Union and lives in Britain, we're not allowed to tax their pensions forever, which is just really strange. And then there's another one, some really weird stuff like we're not allowed to arrest European Union employees even if they commit a crime in the future in this country. It's just some really strange things, and the fact that it gives over the power, when we can leave, how we leave, etc., to a foreign power. I'm putting my British nationalist head on here. I know we don't do European infighting, but the fact that it gives that sovereignty to a foreign power is something that I don't think any world leader anywhere has ever signed a deal quite so bad. I mean, it is really bad. I just want to look into, what are the next steps? So obviously you mentioned that the Tory rebels, they're looking at getting rid of the Prime Minister, and the maths for that are a bit shaky. Whether they can do it at the moment, probably not. But what happens if the deal gets voted down in Parliament on the 12th of December? What happens then, do you think?
Yeah, so basically to pass it through Parliament, they need 320 votes. And there's 326 people under Theresa May, including the DUP. But the DUP have got 10 people, and they're saying that obviously they're a Northern Irish party, that they're propping up the government, but they're saying that they won't back the deal. And then there's also 82 Tory rebels who are saying that they won't. It kind of gets confusing because then there are people from Labour that could potentially back it and pull it up over the 320 mark. But it's looking likely really that it won't pass through. And no one really knows what's going to happen if it doesn't get through the Commons, because, I mean, we could end up leaving the European Union without a deal. So there's no deal, it's just a complete hard Brexit and we leave. You could have another vote in Parliament. So Mrs May will get 3 weeks to make a second attempt. We could have another EU referendum. I know that the People's Vote people are campaigning, saying that we should be voting on the final deal. I mean, how do they think that we're going to lay out the final deal anywhere between now and March and then say, yes, we want it? I think they just obviously want us to stay in the EU, don't they? We could have a general election. I know that Labour want us to have a general election. Or Theresa May could get ousted with a vote of no confidence. So God knows what's going to happen, but it could be completely different in a few weeks' time. The country, we could have Theresa May could have stepped down, or I mean, who knows? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're definitely in for a period of instability, and the way I see it. Now, I think a lot of people probably would have considered this already, but the way I see it, the two sides are gambling here, because you've got, like you said, you've got the three options are basically leave with this deal, which everybody agrees is crappy, leave with no deal, or as the Remainers like to put it, crash out with no deal, or remain in the European Union. So the Remainers are going to vote down the deal, gambling that if they vote it down, they'll get a second referendum. The Leavers are going to vote down the deal, gambling that if they vote down the deal, they'll get no deal at all, which is what they really want and what we want, really. So somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. It'll be really exciting to see what happens. I think we've had somebody's asked us in the comments. Just look into this for a minute. Have you guys thought about doing something fun for December, the Christmas month, a calendar or cartoon or something? We haven't decided on anything just yet, but if you've got any suggestions, send them our way, because we'd always be up for doing something for Christmas. Alex, I'm going to come to you, if you don't mind, on this Brexit issue, just to get a bit of an outsider perspective. What do you guys make of it on the continent? Do you think we're crazy, or what do you think is going on here?
Well, right now Italy has a lot of things going on, but we are watching, I guess, what's happening in the UK. And we are seeing how much power the EU still has on Great Britain. It is scary because, I mean, we are also suffering, the European oppression. We tried to push for a new new economic laws, but they were blocked by the European bureaucrats. And the same thing, in a way, is happening to you, because I mean, in the end, Miss May, she's just basically working for the EU. I mean, she was a Remainer during the referendum campaign, I believe, and as people said in the comments, this kind of deal she signed was made on purpose. It's not just she's incompetent, but she wants this to happen. She wants the UK to be dependent on the EU. So yeah, it is scary, but I do believe that in the end, this is going to be some kind of boomerang for the EU and all the Remainers in the UK, because it's going to motivate even more the Brexiters.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something in that. A lot of people, I mean, there's one thing that people don't really like in the UK is injustice, and we always support the underdog. So as far as we see ourselves as the underdog in this, then I think the public's still on our side. But
yeah, and if I can add one thing,
yeah, maybe
this will finally awaken some of the conservative voters, showing how rotten the party is, and maybe, and just maybe, UKIP will be reborn in a way. I really like Batten. I think it's much better than Farage. He's not scared of being called racist, and he doesn't virtue signal on basically anything. I mean, Farage is great. He did an amazing job on Brexit, okay? I'm not going to deny him that. But if you look at him as a politician, outside of the Brexit problem, he is pretty garbage. He disavowed Enoch Powell. He didn't want Tommy Robinson even as a counselor or advisor or whatever, because he's racist and violent and whatever. I mean, it's not that different from the average conservative. I mean, it's a disappointment, but that's how it is. So yeah, I hope this kind of fail from May will awaken people and move them for the right.
Yeah, I think Farage at this point has become like an English version of Paul Ryan or something. He's gone really bent with his views. But on that point, Laura, the Conservative issue, do you think that this will be the death of the Conservative Party? Because I know for a long time people have talked about, is the Conservative Party going to end up committing suicide over Europe like it's threatened to in the past? But I don't know. Do you think that's a possibility, or do you think these people are too selfish?
Well, Theresa May is saying that she is going to respect Brexit, because if she doesn't, it's not what the people have voted for. But even though this deal that she's drafted out is not Brexit at all, it's not what the people voted for. But I think it's already too late. I think this deal that she's put forward, and how weak that they've been as a party and how weak that she's been as a leader, has already lost the support of the public. Because we don't need to get to the point where she says, okay, we're going to have a second referendum for people to stop caring about the Conservative Party. I think it's already happening. And if you're following Conservatives with a capital C on Twitter, so many people are tweeting that they've just had it with the party. And, you know, they're always like uploading pictures of their membership cards cut up and stuff. I'm seeing them like every single day. So I think that the Conservative Party is very damaged at the moment, and I think it will stay that way for a long time. I think it's a worry because Labour are just so much worse. But then you think about acceleration. Is acceleration a good point? I don't know. But yeah, I think they're ruined already. I think a lot of people will start looking at parties like UKIP. I mean, I don't know if we can fix this by democracy anyway, but I think UKIP could be a good vessel to get some of our ideas into the mainstream. So yeah, I think that the party's already damaged. I think it's being done. I think it's pretty clear that she doesn't care about what the public think.
Yeah, I hope so. I definitely hope so, because, and I agree with Peter Hitchens on this. He said that the way that we could have saved this country a number of years ago would be to destroy the Conservative Party. And I think I definitely agree, because if you look at the political trends in this country, nationalist movements do better when left-wing parties are in power. And that's because the Conservatives are master tricksters, and when they're in power, they give Joe Public a bit too much complacency. They say, oh, look, we're a right-wing party, we're going to control immigration. Of course, they do nothing of the sort, but they say it, and a lot of people believe this crap. So yeah, I hope it really does some damage to the Conservative Party. I'm just looking at some comments. Have a good day says, I never get why Brits obsessed with the EU changing the UK's demographic. You know what? I actually agree with you, because it isn't the European Union that flooded the United Kingdom with Indians and Pakistanis and Africans. That we did that all by ourselves. So I do kind of agree with that. He's also put a good merchandise shop is a good idea. You know, we're actually looking at merchandise like T-shirts and stuff. I think I'm not sure where we're at with the progress on that, but some of the other guys who are better at that stuff are dealing with that. But we'll obviously announce something when we're ready to do that. Let's think on Brexit. So I think we've covered all the main points there, really, about what's going on with the deal and the party. I guess watch this space. Watch this space. Like Laura said, it's 12th of December when the vote is in the House of Commons. So you'll all be able to check in on that. You know, it's pretty certain she's gonna lose the vote, and then, you know, which is the best outcome, I think, because chaos is the best outcome in this political climate. So I think now we'll move on to the second topic, which is this referendum in Switzerland. Now, most people won't have heard anything about this, but it was a small piece of news that came across our feed a few days ago. Basically, it was an initiative put forward by the Swiss People's Party, who are like the right-wing coalition partners in Switzerland. They're a bit like the Austrian Freedom Party in terms of ideology. They put forward this referendum, which is basically the catchphrase for it was Swiss laws, not foreign judges. So the idea is that if the motion was approved, it would enshrine in law that Swiss law would take precedence over international law in certain areas. So I know that's a pretty basic thing. The referendum got defeated. The voters voted like 2-1 against it. So I don't really know what to say about that other than on a theoretical point, guys. I don't know who wants to chime in on this, but why would you? I don't understand why anybody would vote to have international law superseding their own country's law. I just don't get it.
I believe it's because most people unironically believe that the UN, NATO, all those big, huge international organizations are actually the good guys. They honestly believe that. And that's the main issue. Like, if someone is condemned by the international tribunal, he must be guilty because, I mean, if the good guys are saying that guy is guilty, he must be. And that's the main issue with normal people. Don't, inform themselves about certain issues. Like, there are many states on our planet, I guess, that just straight out ignore international law, and they never get punished for it. First of all, Israel and I guess America, these two countries, but also Russia most of the time. These three big powers, they often ignore it and nothing happens to them. These kind of organizations are completely useless if the countries just ignore them. But that's the thing, countries do not. Only the powerful ones do it. So people believe that these organizations are good. So why should we ever, forget about them or give them less powers? They must be good, so let's give them power.
Yeah, I guess when you think about it, most people don't look into these organizations as much as, say, people like us do. So I guess on the surface, you're right. They probably do think, oh, the UN, they must be the good guys, But this has been the setup, since the Nuremberg trials, where basically what you do in your own country is not totally your choice, because if you break international law, then the Americans will send in the jackboots and extract you and kill you. So as a theoretical question, do you think that there is a case to have an international law at all, or do you think that we'd be better off actually just having total self-determination where anything goes?
Total self-determination. It makes no sense. And about this, I love the way China answered to the accusations from the international community about them making camps for their education camps for their population of Muslims. China basically called the international community rude. and I loved it. So wait, you want to know where 1 million Muslims went? Oh, that's rude. I mean, I don't love China, and I think China is, especially on the economical ground, one of our biggest enemies. But holy shit, they have balls. Like, just saying you're rude because you're asking something like this. I wish Western countries were like this, just straight out ignoring these kind of organizations. So yeah, I totally believe we should be completely erasing international law. It makes no sense. And if you look at our history, never something like this happened. And things have always worked out for the better for many countries. But now we just get told by Americans and other big lobbies what to do, and we just do it. Because, I mean, that's international law, so yeah, we have to do it.
Yeah, and to me, it strikes me as, I know this might sound a bit conspiracy crackpot nonsense, but there is some evidence for this, that it lays the foundation for eventually, one day in the future, a one world government, because you've already got some element of common law there, common understanding. It doesn't take much then to say, right, okay, we're going to codify that into a global constitution, and then we're going to have elected representatives at a global level. And, you can see that sort of thing coming out. So yeah, I'm totally with you there. International law, I don't think there should be such thing, because you can't have two judicial systems competing with one another. Laura, I know you haven't had much time to look into the Swiss referendum specifically, but on the point of international law, I mean, just generally speaking, what's your view on what we just spoke about?
Yeah, I'm with you too. Sorry to give such a boring answer.
No, that's fine.
Bet people are listening thinking they're all saying the same. But yeah, I'm completely against it. I just think there's no accountability to them. And even if we look at things like the UN Migration Pact, I know it's not legally binding, but they go out of control, don't they? And they just think that that they rule the world, and they can just dictate to us little people and tell us exactly what we've got to do, down to things like immigration, which is a very serious issue. So no, I just think they always end up having too much power. I think that they're never accountable to us. I mean, we look at the EU, for example. We're 128th, aren't we? So we have a say like that far, but then with the rest, so like the other 27, we don't have a say at all. And there were lots of times when we voted on things in the EU last year, voted against things, and then they just got passed through anyway because everybody else voted for them. So yeah, I just think that countries are different, they're unique. I respect and value the diversity of different countries, and I think that everything should be done from the base of the nation state, really.
Yeah, and you come up with a problem when you end up trying to have a common legislative initiative for more than one jurisdiction, because you've always got, all legal systems are specific to the culture they emanate from. So as soon as you start saying, okay, we're going to have a shared legal code across 2 countries, 3 countries, 4 countries, it just becomes a mess, and it
just doesn't work, and sometimes it becomes completely irrational. Like, I remember there was an article I read some years ago about basically Italian fishermen being fined by European authorities because they were like fishing certain seafood that I don't remember how you say it in English, but small seafood that it was a bit too small by like 1 centimeter, and that was against the European law, and they got fined, like people that basically live day by day. And these things are completely insane. It just makes no sense how these people want to basically micromanage every single thing we do.
Yeah, it does get a bit like that. And then when they try and micromanage situations, they end up doing it very badly because they don't respect the cultural context of a country's actions and legal system. So, the whole lot's a mess. I'm just going to take a look at some of the comments. Cara said about using UK politics to move the Overton window. Yeah, I agree. In this country, winning politically with the first past the post system is it's absolutely ridiculous. Have a Good Day said the UK won't do a yellow vest style demonstration. Actually, we did. In the year 2000, we had massive fuel protests that took on a similar nature against Tony Blair's government. We did it 18 years ago and it achieved nothing. So we have tried and it failed. On that note, I think we should probably move to the main topic of the week, which of course is the yellow vest. I'm not going to say it in French because my accent's appalling, but the yellow vest process. I'm going to hand you over to Alex because he's got some really insightful things to say about this, because it's the process. It all is not as it seems. There's a deeper level to what's going on here, and I think Alex can explain this best.
So I'm pretty sure most people have seen what happened. thousands and thousands of French people poured into the streets, both in big cities and in the campaigns, blocking streets, throwing animal excrements at public government buildings, and also clashing with the police. Peaceful protesters being charged and beaten, especially old people and also women. Very strong and weird situations and recordings that truly showed how authoritarian and violent a supposed progressive government can be, led by Macron. As you know, I'm Italian. I'm not French, but I do have many contacts in France, and I've been there multiple times. And France is a country that is basically split in two. Like this happens in every single Western country, okay? But in France, it's like more developed. There is, of course, the urbanite side, people living in big cities, you know, the new bourgeoisie, and also all the so-called wage cocks in cities. And then you have all the basically people living in rural areas and low-density areas. And these people are the ones who are suffering the most, the newly introduced gas tax. These people are already living in terrible conditions. Suicide rates among farmers in France have been skyrocketing. And Macron and even the previous French government never did anything to fix this. And they actually worsened the situation because with mass immigration, especially African and Islamic immigration in France, they even increased the divide among people and basically created even more classes that hate each other and also can't coexist, both economically but also culturally. France right now is a mess, and the main issue is that this protest won't fix it. It's a start. I admire the French, but as William said, protests like this in Europe already happened. And there is a protest that actually people don't talk about ever. This goes back to the 90s when, I believe it was 1993, when the agreements between European states basically became the European Union.
Oh, the Maastricht Treaty.
Yeah, exactly, correct, thank you. And when that treaty was approved, in Denmark, there were huge protests against it. And what happened? The police opened fire, I believe, on the Danish people and either injured or killed 10. Forgive me if I'm not being very detailed, because I read this like a couple of weeks ago, so this came up to my mind. But this protest already happened. But if you want to change something, this has to go on and on and on. It can't be a 1 or 2 day thing.
Yeah, no, I agree, and you were quite right about that Denmark protest, because what happened was they had a referendum and rejected the Maastricht Treaty, and they were forced to vote again, and obviously it then got approved under pressure, and yeah, the Danish authorities ended up shooting and killing
it's Brexit.
people.
It's Brexit all over again. Think about it. There was a referendum. The good guys lost. There was a second referendum, and they finally won because they deserved it, right? It's crazy how history repeats itself this close, like in just 20 years.
Yeah, and these people don't learn because, like you said, there was unrest then, and 10 people got killed. And obviously, you know, violence isn't the answer, but some of these protests, like the fuel protests, are interesting because they are massive and they have the potential to do a lot of damage. I remember when that happened in the UK, there was the Labour government at the time recounted it as losing control of the country for 3 or 4 days because nobody could get fuel and the public were behind them and everything. So, I mean, to what extent would it be fair to say that this, like you mentioned about France having new class divides because of immigration, integration, and the cosmopolitan nature of French society? So with that in mind, to what extent do these protests have a racial dynamic? Because obviously the people protesting are indigenous Frenchmen.
I mean, it is a factor, but it's not completely a factor. I did see, I a fair number of blacks protesting with the Gilet protesters. And this wasn't about race. It was all about society and people suffering in their classes. But of course, it also reflected race and how many immigrants, and also, I believe there was a leader of a black organization, I think was the French Black Defense League or something like this. I know it's silly, but something like this exists. I know. It's like a retarded version of the ADL, I guess.
Yeah.
And this guy was basically giving statements online to his followers saying, we black people should defend our Lord and... I mean, he didn't say like this, but I'm mocking him, of course. Our Lord and Savior Macron, because, I mean, Macron has been, taking photo shows with criminals who, like, they took pictures with him, and 2 weeks later, or I mean, probably even a week later, they got jailed for a robbery.
Oh, those ridiculous pictures with the black dudes.
Exactly. So he has the black vote, I guess. So there was some racial factors. Also, this comes from experience. I've been to a couple of big French cities. I've been to Paris. I've been to Marseille. I've been to Nice, or Nizza in Italian. And in these cities, a fair number of policemen were not French. And when I say not French, I mean they were not white, of course, because the French are clearly white. I know this is complicated for certain people, but that's how it is. And especially a lot of Algerian policemen. And, these people don't have a problem with beating old ladies and charging unarmed people or peaceful protesters. And we saw it happening in Paris a lot of times. It was a lot of violence, a lot of wounded, and it really showed how the police are not our friends. And listen, I'm not trying to start any kind of ACAP moment, okay? Because I know some people truly respect the police, and I do myself, especially in Italy. Here, the police is not like in France. But remember that the police, as the army and all public institutions, they are tools. They are tools. And especially in big cities, the people enrolled in, especially in right police and the army, are mercenaries. They're not your friends. If one day you will rise up, do not trust the police. And I'm not any kind of anarchic, but it's just a fact. And if you look at the UK, since we have two British people here, they can confirm that. The police is one of the main collaborators in the oppression of thought and also just activism. So, yeah.
Yeah, the police here are, I mean, like you said, they're not like your police. The police here are an absolute disgrace, and they are totally against us. And the worst part about the police here is that they don't seem to see a problem with what they're doing, but they just don't see it. And most of them are white as well. I'm gonna come to Laura with something about Macron in a moment. But before I do, we've had a few people in the comments talking about this. So somebody asks, have the Yellow Gilet protests spread to Belgium and Germany? I don't think Germany. I definitely read that they'd spread to Belgium in the French-speaking part of Belgium. What else have we had here? Yellow Gilet, a cultural movement. Yeah, I guess that's sort of what Alex said, that there isn't an overtly racial element to it. It just so happens that most of the rural farmers are white Frenchmen. What else we got? I think France will be the first place in Europe that will descend into civil war. This is interesting. I've often thought this, because in France, they're not allowed to collect data on the ethnicity or race of people living in the society. So nobody actually knows what the numbers are like, but we can hazard some good guesses from other studies, and it's not looking good. I think they're probably the worse off demographically.
Yes. If I can add something to this.
Yeah.
Any person listening, if you've been to Paris, you know what about I mean. The so-called banlieues. Sorry for my pronunciation, but basically these are the areas that we would call ghettos. These areas are completely lost. They are not France anymore. For example, I guess in Paris, a good example would be Saint-Denis. When I went to Paris with a couple of friends last year, I was lazy, and I decided not to take part in the reservation part. And why am I telling you this? Because my friends, being cheap, they decided to reserve the cheapest place they could find. And guess where I slept? In which area? Saint-Denis. And it was the saddest experience of my life. And I'm not exaggerating. I was like for an entire mile, I was walking, and I was the only white person, if I wasn't counting my friends.
Yeah,
When I was on the metro, the white people were like, I don't know, 1/6 of the passengers, and I truly felt like I wasn't in Europe. And the people, the various Arabs and blacks, but mostly blacks, because Saint-Denis is a very black area, they were looking at me as I was the foreigner. And that was completely fucked up. And that's what's happening all around France in big cities. They are losing huge areas that basically become no-go zones, like in Sweden, I guess.
Yeah, so I think your previous analogy that there's sort of multiple different nations within a nation is quite correct with France. I think the UK is almost as bad, but for instance, London is 65% white. It's only 45% British, but it's 65% white. So there's some different problems, but there are problems nonetheless. Before I talk about anything else, can I just remind everybody, please hit like and subscribe, because your likes and subscribes, they really help us. So if you haven't done that, please do, and share the link elsewhere when you've got the opportunity. Laura, I'm just going to come back to you with Macron, because you've got something interesting to say about his approval ratings. Where is it at the moment?
Yeah, it's just worth mentioning because it actually was at 29% a week or so ago, which is obviously awful. But since these protests have started, it's now at 26%. So a quarter of French people have a favourable opinion of their president. And it's actually lower than, obviously, Francois Hollande. When he stepped down, he was at 48%. And Nicolas Sarkozy was at 29%. So his current approval rating as the current French president is less than the previous two when they stepped down. So it's really, really bad at the moment. And if anybody can cast their minds back to the French presidential election, obviously he went up against Marine Le Pen. And the top reason why people voted for him was actually because they just didn't want Marine Le Pen to win. That always came up as the top answer on polls. So he is not very favourable with the French people at all. But you wouldn't think that to watch him speak, because he's so up himself, isn't he? He's like completely on his high horse all the time. And there was obviously that awful speech that he gave on Remembrance Sunday where he criticised nationalism in front of President Trump. But yeah, it's just dropping. It's consistently since he became the president, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. So the people of France really do seem to be waking up to him eventually.
Yeah, but there is a problem. I hate to be the party pooper, but I'm sure many people don't know how elections work in France, but I'm going to try to make it simple. France basically has a two-turn electoral law, meaning that it's basically impossible right now, at the way France is right now, impossible for Marine Le Pen to win. And why am I saying this? It's because even though Macron right now is hated and despised, if there were like elections tomorrow, in the first turn, Le Pen will probably get more votes than Macron. I mean, today it has been basically officialized that she's more popular than him, okay? But then they will go to the second turn, and whoever got basically second place behind Le Pen would win. Because all the right-wing moderates and all the leftists will vote against her. Macron didn't just win because he was some kind of good candidate, or his spin doctors did a good job with his campaign, but because people don't want Le Pen, as you said. And this means that even though Macron might be a failure, and he might even, I don't know, give his, give up his power and send for new elections, nothing will really change for now. Because the French are still, in my opinion, not red-pilled as much as they should be. And I don't know, I don't have high hopes for French right now. I'm going to be honest. I don't want to sound like a black pill, but the thing is, until they have this kind of electoral law, it is very hard for Le Pen to win. Really hard.
One other thing to mention, sorry, is that the right-wing vote is actually split. So at the last poll, I know we can, say that polls are accurate, and we should always monitor their progress rather than pulling them out at one time and saying that's accurate. I think who was it that said they're more a tool to change public opinion rather than tell you about what it is. But she's actually polling at 21% of people would vote for her and 19% for Macron, so she's ahead. But there are actually there's a party called Stand Up France. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they're polling 7%. And then there's also a couple of other like anti-EU parties that are polling 2%. So that kind of populist right is polling around 30% at the minute, which is going up. I agree with you that it does look kind of bad in France. I mean, they probably say that about us over in Britain, but her share of the vote is going up, and so are populist parties in France.
Yeah, the problem with the French system, though, like Alex said, is that it's kind of like what they're doing with the second referendum here. So they have a first round and then they lose, the establishment being they, and then they think, right, okay, well, we have a few weeks or months or years until the next round, the second referendum, and we know how to win this time because we saw how we lost the first time. And then they have just total wall-to-wall media saturation, vote for this guy, the nationalist is evil, Hitler, literally Hitler, all this nonsense. And so in the French system, you know, and like Laura said, with the political right being so split, and obviously there's the moderate right-wingers vote for the Republicans, who are technically right-wing. So if you add all the right-wing parties up together, then you could easily defeat Macron. But the problem is, in their system, it ain't going to happen. I'm just going to take a look at some of the comments we've been getting in as well. Somebody commented, I think Alex has already replied to this in the chat, but about Italian soldiers being pretty right-wing. I think that's a lot of militaries are like that. Obviously, Alex confirmed that Italy's is, and I know the British armed forces, especially the young soldiers, tend to be quite nationalistic. There was a general who'd retired recently, and he said that he reckoned that 80% of the rank and file of the British army were fascists. And obviously, Germany has had actual legal problems with nationalism in the army. So you know, there's some good signs. That's some good signs indeed. What else have we got? Yeah, in the comments, Macron still thinks he's a god. He does think he's a god. He's an arrogant sod, and nobody's ever told him that he's not as popular as he thinks he is. What else have we got on here?
I mean, we're talking about a guy who married someone who could be easily his mother, so he is not stable. And I mean, there were like rumors about him being sent to some kind of asylum for some kind of prizes. So hopefully we won't see the full term for him, but I don't know. I mean, I just wish the Front National, which is now called, I believe, Rassemblement National or something, forgive me again for my pronunciation, is in bad need of a new leader. I think Marine Le Pen needs to step down. We need some new, fresh face, you know, to lead the French right, and especially someone who doesn't say terrible things like Le Pen. I mean, I remember she said sometime, and I need to find the source, but I'm pretty sure she said this, that like Islam is not necessarily against the French culture or something. And this goes back to French nationalism, which is Jacobin to the core. And as we know, Jacobins are truly the cancer of Europe. They're basically the ones who started the thought that you can actually make anyone part of your state, and actually not state, but nation.
Yeah, I think French nationalism has got a problem. It's got a bit of an identity crisis in that respect, because it's a bit like British nationalism, where you've got the old BNP and National Front, which is ethnic, and then the UKIP style, which is a bit civic. And with France, you know, I think I've spoken to French people, French nationalists, who are not too keen on Le Pen because she, like you said, she is very Jacobin, whereas her father, Jean-Marie Le Pen, was a proper nationalist, like proper ethnic nationalist. So maybe there is something in that, and they could do with getting rid of Marine and bringing back somebody like her father. Laura, any last thoughts on Macron and the French system?
I actually really like Marine Le Pen. She conned me. I don't know. I just think that she's very, very intelligent. I think she's very straightforward with what she says. I think she knows how to play the game. I was at a conference in London a couple of months ago, and there were politicians there from Austria and Germany from the AfD, and they openly said that they only say in public what they know that they can get away with, and their opinions are much further to the right. And they openly admitted about shifting the Overton window, and I think that Marine Le Pen has done that on occasion. But I just really like her. I think she's just very quick and straightforward. I love to watch her debate. Still a huge fan of her on Twitter. She's really good on Twitter. But I have had French people say to me that they don't like her, you know, French nationalists. So obviously they probably know more about her than I do. But I'm a fan of Le Pen. Last thoughts on Macron. Did you guys see the video where he was with Merkel the other day, and an old woman thought that Merkel was Macron's wife? It was so funny.
What?
If you can Google it, Macron was, I can't even remember where they were, but he was stood somewhere with Merkel, and there was an old woman who was like a huge Macron fan, and she thought that Merkel was his wife, and it's just a really sort of cringy, embarrassing moment where Merkel goes, "No, I'm the Chancellor of Germany." You need to Google it and watch it. It's really cool.
I got to look into that. That sounds hilarious. But I mean, God forbid being married to Merkel. That'd be bloody awful. Yeah, I think Marine Le Pen, don't get me wrong, like I like her as a politician. She seems like a genuine woman. I think there was definitely an element of they do say less than they think. I think Nigel Farage is a bit the same way. He's admitted he is the same way before. Like, he's denounced Enoch Powell in public, but in private speeches he's said, actually, no, he was a great guy. So yeah, I think there's an element of that with a lot of right-wing politicians, and it becomes a question of tactics then, doesn't it? Do you shift the Overton window, or do you go straight for the jugular? And it's actually debatable as to which is the more effective, but
depends on the country.
Yeah, definitely.
I can easily tell that right now Italy is so polarized that Salvini, if he really wanted, he could do anything. Like, he has the full support of basically half the country. And he deserves it because he is an amazing leader. And I don't think he's going to do it, because I don't think he needs to do it, because right now we hold the power to actually do things thanks to democracy. For once, maybe this goddamn system can do something good. But for other countries, I think the only way is just accelerating things. Like, especially in the UK and France, the sooner the system crashes down, the better.
Yeah, definitely. I think in the UK, I know from experience in the UK, and I think France is a similar way, that without wanting to say something that will, get me banned or something, but the acceleration is probably the best hope for our countries, for France and the UK. I'm not sure about Germany, but definitely France and the UK. I'm just going to have another look at the comments before we finish up and see. Well, we haven't got time to take the softly approach, in my opinion, says Michael Hayward. Yeah, well, in the UK, I definitely agree. I can't deny that. Now, I've got to talk about this, and sorry for the monologue that I'm about to go on, but Cara said the creation of UKIP coincided with the rise of the BNP. Actually, Nick Griffin did a fantastic presentation about this, and he demonstrated with evidence and with paper trails of money and everything how basically when the BNP got big in the UK, you're talking like 1 million votes, European election successes in different constituencies, and they were really threatening a major breakthrough in a first-past-the-post system, which is remarkable. All of a sudden, Nigel Farage rose to the top of UKIP. UKIP got wall-to-wall coverage on the BBC. The BBC were clamouring over themselves to invite Nigel Farage on. And then a few years later, Nigel Farage stands up in front of the television cameras and said, "Look at me, I killed the BNP." So you know what? I can't fault that suspicion, because I'm not saying Farage is an agent or anything, but I think the establishment used him to destroy ethnic nationalism in the UK, which was getting big around 2008, 2009. So, I mean, I'm just going to, Laura, I don't know how much you've looked into this, but do you have any thoughts on that hypothesis?
Yeah, there's all sorts of dodgy things, isn't there? If you look at the funding that they receive as well, there's also these civic nationalist groups always have links to Israel, and they're always getting shipped out there, aren't they? And, you know, posing with the Israeli army and stuff.
Yeah.
I think nothing is what we seem. I think that they do a lot of dodgy things behind closed doors. Obviously, UKIP is a much lighter version than the BNP, and obviously the BNP were a bigger threat. Nick Griffin isn't kosher for a start. So yeah, I mean, I believe lots of these dodgy conspiracy theories, and if I were to talk about them at work, I'm sure everybody would think I was crazy. But among you guys, I think there's absolutely no way that they tell us the truth about everything. And if you start to follow like the money and where it's coming from, it always links back somewhere dodgy. And even things like the funding of kind of like marches and protests and stuff that we get over here that are supposed to be right wing, the money always comes from a weird place as well. So yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting about the money with UKIP and all that crowd, because part of Nick Griffin's presentation was he showed where the money came from that went to UKIP and the English Defence League, in particular, Tommy Robinson, and he knew this because he was approached by the same people. It was a group of American neoconservative Zionists in the United States, obviously. And they said to Nick Griffin, we'll give you all the money you could ever wish for on two conditions. One, you only talk about Islam and not race. And two, you drop your criticism of the international banking system. Now, this isn't conspiracy. There's a paper trail. It's all on the internet. You can all go and find this.
Yeah. And also look at people like Peter Sweden, who, and even like PJW. I mean, you can say that maybe it's the money that's stopping them from telling the truth, but you don't wake up to certain ideas and then suddenly go back to sleep. Something has to make you want to go back to sleep, whether it's money or whether it's a job where they said, make sure you don't talk about that. Yeah, I mean, we know what the biggest threat is, and we know that that's the one thing that they don't want them to talk about. So I always find it interesting when somebody's completely woke and then one day they're like, you know, tweeting about how bad the Holocaust was and stuff. I think, yeah, there's definitely a lot of dodgy stuff that goes on.
Yeah, Swedish mushrooms and all that sort of crap. You know, the guy looks like he's gone insane. So there must be another explanation there, mustn't there? I think we're gonna finish up shortly. I'm just gonna have a look to see what's going on in the chat quickly. Yeah, again, Cara says UKIP collapsed right after the EU referendum. Yeah, I don't think that's coincidence. Farage jumped ship and the whole thing. It looks like the leadership's made bad decision after bad decision, but you could, through another lens, look at that as the establishment has been very clever in destroying UKIP. So there's some funny things going on in this country and all across Europe. I don't doubt it. I know in Germany, obviously, the National Democratic Party have been infiltrated so badly by feds that AfD is now the only right-wing party and things like that. So I guess there's different things going on in different locations, but yeah, it's all very shifty. And if you guys want to go on YouTube and look at Nick Griffin's presentation, please do. I haven't got time to link it, but if you just search Nick Griffin EDL UKIP or something, it will come up. But yeah, so I think that's where we're at for the comments. I'm not going to go into any more questions because it looks like we're done on that front. But so yeah, thanks for joining me on this one, guys. I hope all the listeners enjoyed it. Like I said at the beginning, or in the middle of the show, please go and hit like and subscribe because it really helps us. If you want to go back and look at our previous episodes, they're all out on YouTube and SoundCloud. And of course, I'm going to shamelessly shill for donations here. If you'd like to keep us doing what we're doing and bringing you new content and on the website and with podcasts like this, then the links are in the description below for how to donate. As always, thank you very much if you do. And that's all from us then. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you.